I'm really honored to introduce Graciano Peterson. Graciano is the Senior Director of Talent, Culture, and Training here at Respectability. And Graciano is going to be speaking about allowing your transferable skills to blossom. So without further ado, Graciano.
Thank you so much, Shelley, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much to the former panelists as well for the lead in to what we are hoping to do today. And so what I wanted to share with you all is just a way to make sure that as you are thinking about employment and what other things might be available to you, how you can make sure that your transferable skills are blossoming, right? Or being developed in a way that allows others to be cognizant of what they are. And so, yeah, hopefully this is a slightly more interactive space in which you feel comfortable adding any questions you may have about, transferable skills, using those skills to get a job, what other jobs might be available to you as you think about your transferable skills. Please make sure that you are asking those questions via the Q&A, and I will try to make sure that I pause to reflect and check in on those. So again, I'm Graciano Peterson. Some of the work that I do at Respectability involves working bringing in new talent into the organization. So I'm very familiar with what it looks like to take a look at some of these resumes and cover letters and figure out if those skills really do apply to the positions that we're looking for. So I'm uniquely positioned to make sure that I can offer you some great advice in this area. As a visual description of who I am a Black Caribbean man. I have a curly fro and I'm wearing dark rimmed glasses and a blue plaid shirt. I'm so excited to be able to deliver this to you, and I will be sharing some things via a slide deck. The slide deck is already posted also on a Padlet, and so I will provide the link to that for you all as well, so that you can feel comfortable accessing all of this information after this session. So let's get into it. Okay, I'm hoping that everyone can see these slides as I'm sharing them. I'm very excited to walk you through these, but I did the introduction of who I am, so we can skip that. But what are transferable skills, right? That's the biggest question, right? What are these things that I'm going to be discussing? But these skills are just anything that you have been doing through your employment, through schooling, through internships that have allowed you to gain some level of experience, right? You have done a lot of things up until this point in your careers and in your lives, and all of those things have prepared you to do other things. So making sure that you're able to identify what those skills are and pinpoint the ways that make you marketable for employment, and also be able to maybe decide that this is a really good way for me to get into a different career because I have this skill already, right? So they're called transferable skills for that very reason. You don't have to be stuck where you are, but you can use them to get to other places. Maybe you want to investigate something new and different. Those are what your transferable skills are. If you're really thinking about what that might look like, how you're going to be able to get into that place, and what might be next for you, I have a really important book recommendation to give you. And so that book is called What Color Is Your Parachute? This is a book that I was able to read to kind of help develop some of the ideas that we're going to talk about today. This book was written by Richard N. Bowles, and there's many versions of it that are very specific to different people and in different spaces and places. But what's great about this book in general is that it gives you an idea of how you want to be pursuing what may be next in your career. This can be happening at any time. You can be very comfortable in your career, but still want to evaluate some of your thoughts and interests and other things that you might be looking at. So use this opportunity to go ahead and evaluate what might be next. What color is your parachute analyzes not just what you are looking for in a job, but also what you might be looking for in your life in general. It asks you to think about many different things. And it can do this through what is a very, very meaningful exercise known as the flower exercise or flower diagram. Okay. And the flower diagram is called that because it is very much in the shape of a flower. The idea here is that you use this wonderful flower diagram to think about all the different things that impact your happiness in career and in life in general. And the petals have different things, and you can organize these petals in any way. The order is not important. The content is. And so just to give you a preview of what those petals are, one of the petals is about your favorite knowledges. And I love that word. I love pluralizing this idea of knowledge as well. But what are you most interested in or have a deep understanding of, right? What are some of the things that are just super exciting to you that you can never get enough of, that you love to investigate, that you're passionate about pursuing? Those are the ideas of like some of the things that might be included in your favorite knowledges, right? A favorite knowledge of mine, for instance, is geography. I don't use it, but I have just a random and deep understanding of geography, and I find it very fascinating and interesting. And it's one of those things that I hold near and dear to my heart, right? In addition, I have a really good understanding of people and how they work and what they need to learn and grow more. Hence, sort of some of the things that I do in my role. Okay. The next area to kind of think about are your people environments. So who do you enjoy working with, right? Now, we've all been there. We've all had those coworkers that you're just like, could probably do without because of whatever reason it may have been, right? You had this really terrible experience with them this one time, or they were incredibly just annoying and they weren't really listening to what it is that you were trying to provide. Whatever the case may be, you know who some of those people are, but it goes beyond that, right? When you're talking about people environments, you're thinking about the company's culture, what works for you, what are you hoping to have, right? For many people with disabilities, of course, that's going to be an organization that is understanding of accommodations. What does it look like? How are we going to be able to work in that space? What are they willing to allow for me? As I want to be as comfortable as I can in this area. Is it a remote work environment? Is it hybrid? Is it fully in person? Right. And additionally, what is the size of the organization? Right? Do I want to be a number in a huge corporate environment? Sometimes it sounds really great. I just want to be a cog in the machine. Just let me be. Or maybe you want a more intimate setting, right? You really want to be able to work with everyone on every team and learn a little bit about everything that's going on. And of course, what are the social political views of the organization? Are they nonpartisan? Are they feeling like they're aligned to the mission and the things that I would like to engage in? Those are some of the things you want to be considering when you think about people environment. Of course, the third petal is transferable skills, which are our focus on today. So I'm not going to get into that at all. Working conditions, right? So what do you need to be able to do your best work? Okay, that includes some of the other things that we were just mentioning in the people environments, but going a little bit deeper. Like, do you need flexible working hours? Like, do you need a flexible PTO schedule because maybe you're undergoing treatment for something right now and you want to be able to do that treatment, but also still being fully employed, right? We talked about some of the office settings, remote work versus non-remote work, and how unstructured or structured is the work environment, right? Like, do you want to be able to come in every day and know exactly what you are doing? Do you want some more variability, right? Do you want it to kind of be a little bit more random? Those are some of the things to think about in working conditions. Of course, salary and responsibility are super important. And when I say responsibility, like what level in the organization are you hoping to get to or aspire to? Is there growth? And of course, preferred places to live, right? This is an essential piece of the puzzle. I hear about all these great places and things that where people might want to be. And my question is always, how cold does it get? Because I think I've reached my limit with cold. Not going to go any further north. Sorry. But that's just where it is, right? Like, do you have a preference? And if you do have a preference, how do you analyze that? Okay. And then the final petal area are, what are your values and goals? Okay. What are you hoping to aspire? How is this job, this position where you're working going to align with that and going to align with some of the things that you're aspiring to and where you want to be, right? So that is just an overview, a little bit of some of the beneficial things that I got out of reading What Color Is Your Parachute and doing the flower exercise. I've included in here an example of Donna Montoya's completed flower exercise. This is not something that you should think of as a static document, like that once it's done, this is what you're going to do and spend, however long pursuing these dreams, but thinking about it as something that you want to be able to navigate towards and explore at different times, right? Making sure that you're checking in, making sure that some of these values are still the same. Have you changed your mind about working conditions? Have you decided that, like, oh, I don't have a specific people environment that I'm looking for, and then you have an environment that you hate, and you're like, okay, now I do. I know what I don't want, and this is super important to me, right? So thinking through how all of these affect what you're looking for and how you're going to navigate that phase of finding employment. And as I said it before, I did include a link to some resources. Here's the link here, but I'm also, again, going to put it into the chat. I also will share it a little bit later as well, and you'll have this whole deck accessible to you. Now, let's go back to our focus on transferable skills. Okay. Remember, again, those transferable skills are all the experiences you've had up to now in your life and work. So, what are some of the transferable skills that you've been able to accomplish so far, right? Tell me in the Q&A, give me an idea of what you're thinking about. If you're not sure about whether or not something is a transferable skill, also a good idea now to go ahead and start populating some of those things. But transferable skills are going to fall into 4 major categories. There are other categories and other ways we can, be able to identify these, but I'm going to talk about 4 major areas. Those 4 major areas are going to be communication, leadership and management, research and planning, and human relations and interpersonal skills. Okay. In general, you're going to find that you can plug a transferable skill into those areas, but not only that, these are the transferable skills that most employers are looking for, right? They're going to be transferable skills related to your ability to communicate. And that includes things like being able to write in a variety of different ways, right? If you are interested in working in nonprofit management or development, you must know how to do grant proposals and do some more grant writing. That's going to be very essential. Leadership and management is not limited to just having a certain level in the organization, but also taking leadership of projects and ideas, right? And so working through that, thinking about what that means for you, is not just going to be about being able to lead people, but also just lead and complete projects independently. Research and planning, right? Are you able to figure out the best approach to complete a project or an idea? Are you able to figure out who you need to talk to get assistance with something? Research and planning skills are incredibly transferable, incredibly needed. And when you're thinking through human relations and interpersonal skills, it's really about how you are able to work in a team, right? It is very rare nowadays you're going to get a position in which you are working absolutely by yourself without needing to work with others. So being able to communicate well with others and having, a way to, get what you need from other people is going to be super important. Okay. All right. Let's move forward a little bit and look at communication skills holistically. All right. So again, when we're thinking about communication skills, how are you able to facilitate even just a group discussion? How do you interview? How do you sell people on your ideas and thoughts? Those are all included in communication skills. So I see that someone wrote here in the Q&A that they're interested in working in policy, right? Being a policy analyst or a policy advisor. We're going to have a really great panel tomorrow with some of our members of our policy and workforce development teams to kind of discuss a little bit more about what it takes to get into those work areas. But I'll tell you right now that communication skills are at the top of some of the needed skills for that work area, okay? Because you do have to do a lot of writing. You do have to do a lot of personal selling, a lot of selling on your agenda, a lot of selling on why you're a good collaborator, right? It is essential to have effective communication skills in that work. And those skills, right, that allow you to be able to persuade and advocate are really great transferable skills. If you're ever thinking about, now that I've built this up, maybe I want to explore something else, it's applicable in many different areas and fields, right? So look, what are some other communication skills that I haven't really directly mentioned that you all think might be super important and transferable? Make sure you're also including those things in the Q&A, and we can address that as well. We're going to take a look next at some of our potential research and planning skills. All right. Research and planning skills include things like goal setting, right? We want to be able to figure out what is next. After we do this, how do we get to this next stage? But also being able to evaluate success, right, on goals and other things. That is a transferable skill that is essential across many domain areas, okay? Being able to gather information, super essential to some of the policy work that we were talking about before. You have to know who those players are, right? You have to gather information on them, gather information on what are some of their important policy strategies and things that they're thinking about. So these are essential things to that work too. Including the research and planning is something that people might not think about often enough, is being able to identify problems, right? And also find solutions for them, right? So when we're identifying problems and what are the things that hiring managers are going to look for, is not just your ability to identify problems, but propose potential solutions. You're not there yet, you're not doing the work potentially, but if you have that mindset already about what a solution could be to a problem that you may have noticed or that you think may be happening going in, that is a great thing to flag for a potential employer, right? Your ability to not only identify problems, but propose potential solutions, okay? Included in research and planning is the idea of budgeting. And if you're going to work at nonprofits, if you're going to work in any sphere really, budgeting is super important, but particularly in that nonprofit and government arena, we're going to need you to stick to a budget. It is so very important. All right. Again, same thing with like the previous skill areas. What are some research and planning skills that you think that you may have acquired over your career? We can discuss those as well and how we can move forward with them. Right. Let's think about our leadership and management skills next. All right. There are always going to be situations in which these skills are not only important, but transferable. One of the main things in work that I do is the ability to teach or instruct, right? I spent 14 years in adult education. I feel very comfortable in that space of teaching and instructing, but it also has allowed me to be able to do the same thing with developing others, right? So I've transferred my teaching ability to developing skills in other people, guiding people along their route and what might be next, and even giving you all this talk today, right? All of that is built on this idea of having these skills in teaching or instruction to be able to transfer them into other spaces, right? Delegating responsibility is another area that that teaching has led me into being able to do. But you can learn how to delegate responsibility from your experience of being an older sibling, even, right? Think about what you may have allowed, for lack of a better term, your younger siblings to do in your stead. You know, that is delegating responsibility. You've done it. You've given that, given up your own responsibility, allow others to take it on, right? These are things that are essential skills that many have to learn that you might already have innately, right? If you're thinking about developing your own company, having your own sort of customized employment with anything that you're going to do yourself, leadership and management is essential to what you are doing, right? Because you have to recruit and hire staff. You have to provide direction through coaching and feedback. All of this is something that you need to have. These are skills that you need to have in order to be able to do this work. You can learn these things by working with others and taking leadership opportunities in group projects, right? And group work at your organization and interdepartmental work. All of those things give you the opportunity to become leaders in your own spaces that'll allow you to build these transferable skills that you can then include in your resumes and cover letters, right? Very often people will get these experiences in the work that they're doing and focus so heavily on outcomes that they don't mention the skills learned. And so this is why it's so important to think about these skills and how these skills are showing up and where they're showing up so that these hiring managers can identify them as needed. Okay. Project management, project oversight, and project supervision are all essential pieces here in that leadership and management skill set. And we have to make sure that you are thinking about how that applies to universally to almost any position you can think of, is your ability to manage projects. What it comes down to is work is all about project and project completion, getting things from A to B, right? And so be very cognizantly aware of how that shows up in any of your documentation as you're pursuing employment, right? You have been managing projects, talk about it. Okay, you have been managing programs, talk about it. And don't gloss over it because it's not part of your title. Make sure that you are emphasizing all of this work as well. Again, let me know any of those leadership management skills that I didn't mention that you want to highlight or talk about. In the Q&A, we can discuss those as well. All right, let's think about our human relations and interpersonal skills next. These are the ones that are sometimes referred to as soft skills, right? These are the skills that are not as learned or taught, but developed over time. And so being able to have a good rapport with people, making people feel comfortable, this is a really important human relation skill that is applicable again to all sorts of job areas, right? When you develop rapport, you're also able to build trust, and trust building is super important to many areas of work. Sales is in particular something that I think about all the time. When if you're able to develop trust, people are able to rely upon you for the good advice that you're offering regarding the products that you're trying to sell to them. Additionally, thinking through how you approach work in policy as well. You have to talk to many people, right? And they have to trust that you're going to follow through on some of the promises that you are making. So being able to develop rapport is important. And you can do that also through some active listening. Another skill that is sometimes overlooked, but essentially important, right? And that's making sure that you are providing feedback and responsiveness when others are talking, and making sure that you're not just waiting for an opportunity to speak, but giving them that that time and that moment to let them know that you are hearing them. Okay. It is also essential to make sure that you are sharing credit, right? By reflecting again on teamwork, right? We don't do work independently, right? I know it's a weird thing here, right? Because you always want to talk about your own accomplishments, but your accomplishments can be how you worked effectively as a team member as well. Because we have to be able to demonstrate the sharing of credit, demonstrating how you are working not just alone, but with other people, and how you're able to represent others on as a leader, and cooperating too. All right. Okay, so if there's, again, other human relations and interpersonal skills that I've yet to highlight, let's make sure that we're thinking about those and how do we transform that, okay? And of course, in general, if there are skills that you think that you have developed in one career, but you're hoping to transfer them to another career, mention those in the chat as well, because we can talk about how we can use these skills that you have developed in one area to get to another space. Okay. I've mentioned it many, many times, but in order to do this effectively, we have to make sure that you are putting your transferable skills front and center, making them a really big part of the documentation that you are putting out there. So I'm going to skip over this next slide to get right into what I'm trying to make the case about here, which is how to showcase your skills, okay? So in your resume, you want to make sure that you're bragging about your skills in any of the areas that I have bolded here, included your summary and objective, in your experience areas, but then also making sure that you're mentioning it again in a section that many people don't include, but specifically calling out any leadership and professional development opportunities that you're taking advantage of, all right? So if you call out your specific instances of professional development, it allows people to see where you have, what skills and areas you've been specifically working on, right? That may not come across in some of the job titles that you've held. So that's an important place to kind of include that professional development piece. It was mentioned in the previous panel here about LinkedIn Learning, but there's a myriad of different places you can be getting your professional development skills from. Why are you doing all of this if you're not going to call it out on your resume? Please, please, please do it, right? Make sure you're mentioning it and showing off about what you've done. Again, in your experience, right? Don't talk about solely the objectives and the outcomes that you've been able to accomplish, but also the skills that you have been able to develop, especially if you're hoping to use those skills later, right? So for instance, if you are looking to apply to a role that you don't have direct experience in, but you know you've gained those specific skills, I am not going to know that as the hiring manager if it only shows up in your cover letter, but you don't also then talk about it in the experience section, right? So let's think about it this way. You're applying to be a grant writer for an organization, and you have been working previously in communications, right? Where a lot of your focus has been in public relations, right? But you know you have developed enough skills that are going to help you with that grant writing. Please tell me about that by emphasizing how you've used your PR experience to do more writing, to make sure that you've been working with the development team at the previous organization to learn about what they do and help them improve their writing, things like that, right? That will demonstrate that you have some connection to that world, even if you don't have the direct experience, okay? Also too, with your summary or your objective, you could talk about specifically what you have done to give yourself the experience that you're trying to do in this new role. All right. And I have a question in the chat about maybe transferring your journalism skills to academic or policy research, right? Well, what do you have to do in journalism, right? You have several examples, hopefully, right? As a successful journalist or somebody who's published as a writer after doing a lot of interviews, is your ability to gather information and collect information in a way that you can present back to the public, right? Those skills are transferable skills that are going to be very helpful in academic or policy research, particularly in the policy side. And you're able to demonstrate that, like, hey, I can gather information and then present it in a way that other people want to interact with it, right? In policy, that is one of the hardest things to do, because we have many policy professionals who are really into their policy work and are then unable to translate that for other people to also be interested in it, right? So as a journalist, you have experience potentially doing that. So that's the way that you can use your journalism skills to get into policy research, to get into academic research. You've already been doing the research, I've been working in this area of gathering information. That is a huge transferable skill, right? And then making it readable in a way for others, another really great communication skill. So yeah, you're there. You have two really great checkpoints. So I think that you should explore that even more. Okay. Please be sure to keep adding more of these questions to the chat so I can answer them for you all. In your cover letter, don't only forget to mention like why you're interested and why you're a good fit, but like what skills have made you a good fit, and highlight those relevant experiences so that I can go back and find them in your resume. And make sure you're always closing your cover letter with other skills that are not readily apparent in your resume, right? If you couldn't find a place to put it in, the leadership development section was actually going to put you on like a 5th page, and you're like, no, this 5-page resume is not the look. Then go ahead and summarize in your cover letter instead, right? Your cover letter is supposed to also be a good place to, to call out that information that you can't necessarily share always in the resume. All right, keep those questions coming. I want to hear it. Okay, so we are going to take a look at a sample job that I created, and we're going to identify some of the things that what they're looking for in the job, and how we can translate them into other transferable skills that we may have, right? And how we can talk about those skills. All right, so let's take a look at that. All right, so for this position, it's an academic writing specialist, pretty generic enough as a job title. We'll see what kind of things we can kind of point out and pick out to get into this, how we can find some transferable skills from this job ad. So here we go. So the first bullet point says to work within the school professional development team to develop a robust curriculum that supports and develops students' writing and research communication capabilities, and that builds intellectual as well as administrative skills that will enhance student work in the academy and beyond. Whoa, okay, that's a whole lot, and I don't know that I have those specific skills exactly. All right, so let's see what we can point out here. Well, let's start pretty easily here with working within the school professional development team. Well, I can work with a team. I have experience working in a team. Sorry, excuse me. Trying to highlight here. Okay, yes, I have experience working in a team, right? So let's talk about, my teamwork skills, right? How have I worked in a team before? Where are those examples in my resume? How does this make me a good fit? And what have I been doing to build up my teamwork experience? That's the first thing that I would mention and call out here, okay? develop a robust curriculum that supports and develops students' writing and research communication capabilities. Well, developing students, what experience do I have developing others? That's what we want to talk about here. Do I have experience providing training to others, guiding people on training opportunities, or in another way, giving back to people to make them, have them understand what might be next for them or how to create a different opportunity for themselves? That's what we could talk about if I don't have that direct experience, but I'm going to talk about how I've developed others. Okay. All right. Writing and research communication capabilities. Okay, what are my own writing and research capabilities? Do I call that out enough? Have I talked about what my writing skills are, what my research skills are? Those are some things that I can mention to get to this first bullet point. All right, I have another bullet point here. Develop and teach several semester-long courses and additional workshops that train students alone and in teams to effectively research, evaluate, and communicate complex technical ideas, concepts, processes, or procedures in written and presentation form. Oof, again, another super long bullet point. I try to do these as accurately as I've seen them in job postings, right? Okay, this is another long one, right? I still have to talk about how I've trained others, right? Okay, alone and in teams. So it goes back to this idea of getting that information again to reflect what I've done in teamwork, right? Showing those skills, right? And effectively demonstrating my research, evaluation, and communication skills, okay? How do I evaluate success? What are my research skills? And how do I make sure that I'm communicating in a way that anybody can understand what it is that I'm saying? Is it super technical jargon? Is it you have to be in the industry to understand? If that's the case, then I'm not doing a really good job communicating complex technical ideas. How can I demonstrate that? Making sure that I emphasize that I'm able to address things to the layperson. Okay. All right. Provide instruction through various modalities, including face-to-face and online instructional interactions. When have I done this? When have I been in a Zoom space? When have I been in person? What have I done all these different ways of having different communication skills and training and talking? Let's talk about those opportunities. Okay. All right. Actively support existing dissertation and thesis support services, assist with facilitating writing retreats in Education Institute and other related projects. Okay, so assist with facilitating writing retreats. Do I have any experience with planning events? Have I done any event planning? Have I done any work making sure that I can get other people in different places? That is a transferable skill, okay? Have I supported projects? What is my project management experience? Again, it comes back to these things that we've talked about already, okay? Assist the team with additional projects and programs, right? Such as a Dissertation Institute writing retreats and technical writing publications to support the unit. Again, project management. All of these are skills that we have as we can transfer, we can demonstrate to those people who are looking for this position. Do I have any experience developing and providing instructional content in the classroom? Strong working experience with various software platforms, okay? Again, here we talk about what we have done and where we have done it and why these things are transferable skills. So like never dismiss a job because you're just like, oh, this is too in-depth for me. I've never done this specific thing. You have the transferable skills, talk about it, build it out. And these things can be done if you demonstrate it in the correct way. All right, so all of this is available to you. You have the access to do it. Trust me. Okay. All right. I'm gonna keep moving forward here. All right, I did have one more live LinkedIn content that I wanted to take a look at. If we had the time, we have just a couple more minutes left, but I also just wanted to share quickly the resources that I had mentioned before that we were going to make sure that we had. So I'm going to share that link with you all in the chat. I'm not sure if that goes to everyone or not. Probably does not go to everyone. It is available to you all. We do have all the transferable skills resources, and I will share that screen with you now. We just created a little Padlet here for everyone to be able to access these resources. So if you're thinking about what are those transferable skills, how can I make them apply? The PowerPoint is still there. I will recommend to you all, if you haven't gotten a chance to read the book before, What Color Is Your Parachute, I can recommend to you the Headway app, which summarizes books pretty quickly. You like sometimes 12 to 13 minutes sometimes. It's a good way to get a nice introduction to that book. But there are all the resources are in here. The What Color Is Your Parachute publishers have made a lot of the resources available online. And so I have just curated those in one little place for you. So you can review some of the things that they've mentioned about the book. There's a link to the extended contents of the book and also all the flyer diagram exercise so that you can complete the flyer diagram exercise and all the petals and sort of figure out what might be next for you. If you give an example of the outline and instructions on how to do it. And so, yeah, I've even included a PDF of a simple flower diagram that is completely readable and accessible to screen readers. So that is essentially it for transferable skills. Allow yourself to try something new, use the skills that you already have to get into something new and different. That's what, I was here to just talking with you about today, is just making sure that you understand that you have options and a lot of things available to you if you just give yourself the time to think through it about what might be next and what else you might be able to leverage. So I hope that this was helpful. And I look forward to seeing you all on some of the other panels and engaging in some of the other activities that we're doing today and tomorrow as an organization. All right.